Welcome, everybody, to this week's fascinating edition on the April Sound debate and the Conroe City Council races in general.
Fascinating edition of what?
Rock the boat, people. You didn't let me get to it there. You jumped the line. Oh, man. Anyway, with me, as always, on Rock the Boat is my esteemed co-host, the inestimable, the magnificent Reagan William Reed.
And you are, of course, the wild, the wacky, and the wonky Robert F. Coates.
F? F? Where'd you get that F? Oh,
That's what you always say, your middle name.
No, it's W.
Okay.
W, just like the former president's son. My dad is Bob Coates, and I'm not Bob Coates Jr. He's got a different middle name, just like the other people. All right, here we go. First off, I had a candidates forum this week. He's already laughing because
we've heard.
Yeah, and it was a wild and woolly one, but not really. Actually,
really. It was wild.
Okay.
People will talk about that forum for years to come.
Okay. Now, Reagan, why don't you go ahead and give your general, 3-4 minute overview of what occurred at this debate and what you were thinking as a moderator watching me kind of take over this event and with a social experimental kind of aspect. Go ahead.
So, Bob, do you want me to...
Go ahead, dude. I don't care. But it's like,
Hey, Bob, I need a piece of paper. You want me to write down my answer and then go stand in the corner and give it to you?
Okay, let's start off with a chronological.
Okay, what happened? Okay.
All right.
Let's see what happened. So it was at your neighborhood, April Sound. This guy's like the king of April Sound.
Whatever.
And so...
I did get some good guests, though.
Yeah, and so most of all the candidates came actually, except for position 3 candidates, Carl White and John Hernandez. Mm-hmm. And they missed out, let me just say that. So you had Marshall Porter and Susan Johnson for one position. You had Raymond McDonald, the incumbent, and Howard Wood for the other position. And then Harry Hardman, Larry Calhoun, and Brandon Polk for that position. Okay, so starts out, we have it starts out pretty normal, actually. Just kind of the average softball questions, right? And so then, a couple questions into the debate, and I did not know Bob was going to do this. I mean, he'd been asking me before. He's like, Reagan, we need some paper and pens for the candidates. I'm like, well, if they want to take notes, then they should have brought the paper themselves.
No.
And I did not know what he had in mind. But apparently what he had in mind was he told the candidates that he's going to give them 3 questions and read the questions out. And then they each needed to have a piece of paper and write these questions down. And so then he was going to set the timer and give them 5 minutes to write their answers down. And so then our wonderful timekeeper, John Paul Boucher, he set the clock for 5 minutes. And so then there was just a very awkward pause for about 5 minutes. And while the audience is like, what are we doing for 5 minutes? What we really need is for you to sing a song for us.
Yeah.
And entertain us.
Sure.
And the candidates are like, oh my gosh, you should have seen the looks on the candidates' faces. They're like looking at each other like, did he really just ask us to do this? Like, what is going on? Mm-hmm. And so then after the 5 minutes is up, it got even wilder. And again, me and our friend Boucher are just like looking at each other like, what the heck is going on? Bob has gone off the rocker. And so then...
Verified.
Bob tells the candidates to... I felt like I was in 6th grade again.
Yep.
The candidates have to go, take their answers, and they have to go to different corners of the room. So they have to spread out all corners of the room, and so that they can't look over each other's shoulders and read off the other's answers. I guess.
Yes.
And so then they proceed to read off the answers, and so then the wild and wonky Bob Coates stands behind each candidate as they read their answers, looking over their shoulder to make sure that what they're reading is actually what they wrote. And if it was the same, then he would say...
Verified.
Mm-hmm. And but if they didn't write it, they didn't get verified.
Nope.
And so that was basically what happened at the forum. And I
wasn't.
No, Bob, I said I've never been to a candidate forum like that. and probably won't again. So with that, Bob, what did I miss? What did I leave out?
You missed a bunch,
Okay,
but
okay.
you skipped ahead to the real interesting part.
Well, yeah, of course.
Okay,
This is
yeah, all
entertainment.
right,
Of
all
course I'm gonna talk
right,
about
all
the
right,
interesting part.
all right. So the first question was basically why are you running, and what are you trying to accomplish? Okay, two-parter. All right, and I don't think they did that well on it. Honestly, I mean, I don't think they actually considered what are they trying to accomplish. Why are you running? It sounds simple. Dear Ted Kennedy.
No, Bob, it's not just why are you running. It's why are you running for Conroe City Council. Remember?
Right. But what are you trying to accomplish, right? I don't think they started off weak, in my opinion.
It was a softball question.
Yeah, but they started off weak.
Well, you ask a softball question, you get a softball answer.
True. But then, and that was by design. I knew I'd give them an easy one first, then I'd give them a harder one. And let's start with the easy intro. They only had a minute to do it. I didn't give them that 2 minutes.
Except for Marsha Porter, who got 2 minutes.
Well, the reason why is because I mistakenly read the theme thing instead of the actual question.
That was me.
Yeah, that was you. But honestly, and most people say this is a bad thing to do, but I did this deliberately so I wanted them to feel comfortable in themselves and their answers, okay? So I went around the horn to every candidate, and I basically gave them the themes that we would be discussing, all right? And if they had any questions at that point, they might be able to ask if they asked.
It's not cheating if you help them all.
That's correct. So I basically prepped everybody. Now, how many people were going to say, oh, this wasn't fair. Yeah, it was. So
was it fair to Susan Johnson that Marsha Porter got 2 minutes and everyone else got 1?
Yeah, I screwed up the question. So yeah, it's fair because we're starting off, and she gets. I believe you, in fairness, that you should be able to do that. And Susan acquitted herself very well in this debate. So anyway,
yeah, she did good.
She did well. Now moving forward, so they didn't really answer that question. I think almost all of them didn't really, except for maybe Howard Wood and Susan actually answered that question. They were both there.
And Marsha Porter did too.
Yes. Yeah, and Harry did, but I think that they were all kind of
all did.
They kind of all did, but they were nervous. They didn't do as well as I thought with the softball, is what I'm saying.
They would have been even more nervous if they knew what else was going to happen.
If they knew what was coming, they might be even more nervous. But the second question was on the San Jacinto River Authority.
That was the best question of the night.
Yeah, it was. Now, I know it actually wasn't. I think my third experimental question was, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
The San Jacinto River Authority questions were basically, are you going to give up on the lawsuit? Mm-hmm. We got clear answers on that.
Well,
sort of.
Well, not necessarily.
Sort of.
That was the one question where they really did. A lot of them kind of gave answers that had some wiggle room.
They were trying to play both sides, I felt. Mm-hmm. Did you feel that way? A couple of them?
Yeah, it's like we absolutely should not settle the lawsuit.
But
unless we should settle the lawsuit.
Right.
Yeah.
We had a few people answer that way, and that's hemming and hawing, and that wasn't that great. But a few of them knocked it out of the park. Of course, Harry Hardman did on that question.
Well, just
go ahead.
For the viewers,
yeah.
The brief synopsis of this is that the city of Conroe has been involved in a lawsuit against the San Jacinto River Authority over, water rates and other things. Mm-hmm. And
almost a decade.
Yeah, and so now really the battle has gone very favorable for Conroe. They've been doing well in the courts, and also they've gotten in a board on the Lone Star Groundwater District that's favorable to Conroe's side, and so they're winning everything now. Yet, amazingly, there's talk about potentially they're settling with the SGRA, and so that's what's baffled a lot of people is why would you settle now when you're winning and not stay the course? Like you settle a lawsuit when you think you're going to lose, and
right.
So
you don't settle when you're winning and winning and winning. No,
and so that's why this whole issue of the lawsuit has become a very big question in the Conroe City Council race, and I think that's probably the biggest.
It's the biggest issue, yeah, because and the question was designed so that it would elicit a response like, basically, are you with, basically continuing the lawsuit? Are you kind of, maybe we should settle, or, I wanted to see if anybody would be maybe favorable toward the SJRA, and nobody.
No,
Nobody
SJRA is
was.
not very popular.
No, they're.
And so I think it was Marsha Porter, Howard Wood, Harry Hardman, and I think Brandon Polk, actually. They all
Brandon did
gave the most emphatic answers that no, we should
Brandon was
continue the
emphatic on
lawsuit.
that. Yeah, he was.
And then Susan Johnson, Larry Calhoun, and Raymond McDonald were the ones that they did, again, like you said, they were not explicitly pro SJRA, but they did give a little bit more
balance,
wiggle room,
wiggle room
in their answers,
which is fine. That's their prerogative. But the question did get some really good response, and I think. And then I got to explain something that I needed my neighborhood to know, because there's so many new people in there, and it's the host prerogative. And I did a point of personal privilege here with our candidate forum, and I told them that April Sound negotiated out when we were annexed. We negotiated out of the SJRA, so we didn't want to be a part of the SJRA. How many neighborhoods had mud boards or representatives that were able to pull that off? I bet you not many. Okay, so that was an important point. People didn't know it.
I'm sure it's because City of Conroe just didn't want to deal with any of that stuff.
No, I would be still ranting at them. Okay, well, moving on. But that was an important question, and with that in mind, I thought have a very serious question and then take it even further. 3 issues come up repeatedly in cities that are always controversial. The third issue, not so much, but it's not done, and to me it's controversial because it's bad government. The first 2 were tax abatements, and the other thing is variances for developers or builders so that they can build more houses and cram them in, right? And that happened a few years ago at the Woodlands Hills, or whatever it's called. Is it the Woodlands Hills or the Hills of the Woodlands? And
Woodland
it just sounds like it's in the Woodlands, but I don't know where it is. Anyway, it's actually off 830.
Well, it's done as a marketing.
It's a marketing.
I used to live right in there, right when they were building that.
Really? Okay.
I live right next to it. Yeah.
Oh, well, anyway, so that was going back. Variances in the city of Conroe have been kind of, I would say there's a lot of, they try to push it very hard to get variances, and that game to me, if it involves public safety, is a no-go. Okay, and I want to build a 20-foot wide street. Well, you can't get a fire truck out of that.
Yeah.
No, and that's terrible. But developers want those things, and you don't always have to grant them. But the average candidate, I don't think, knew enough about this question. But if you're running for Conroe City Council as somebody who's maybe trying to build up their business or just to build name ID, and you think if I run twice, then I'll be up there, probably not the way to do this. You got to be educated on these controversial issues, I think, very much so. Tax abatement. Okay, we started with the tax abatement.
And these, again, and what was the third?
The third one, The third one.
Oops, I forgot.
Oops, I forgot, like Rick Perry.
Rick Perry.
Okay, yeah. The third one was, should we, as the city of Conroe, basically work with other government entities and in more shared partnerships on road and other construction?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so these are the 3 questions that you had them write down.
Correct.
And go to the separate corners of the room and then verify that they did their homework.
I told them 4 times to write that down because that's education pedagogy, right? It takes 4 times.
I know. I felt like I was in 6th grade.
Well, that's right. But that you're not, because this was more a lot deeper level thing than this, because I wanted authenticity in the answers. They're going to give an authentic answer probably in the first one. The second one, right, because it's a controversial issue, right, they're gonna probably side and create momentum for, or I should say against SJRA in these court cases. And then the third one was designed to actually test critical thinking skills, knowledge, listening ability, and see how they react to uncomfortable, slightly situations, okay? And in leadership seminars, they often do these things. It's not just this, it wasn't a 6th grade exercise. This was designed to make them give authentic answers without an echo chamber effect like we see in all these debates, Reagan, where somebody answers a question, right? The next person has a better answer. They start doing this topping effect. Pretty soon down the line, 5th person, if there's 5 in a field, goes, I agree with what everybody else said. that's a terrible way to do things, these forums. And how many forums do we have? Like, we had so many in this last cycle.
Dozens of them.
Dozens. And they all were the same like that. They're like, we've got to be fair and we've got to give them the same lame question. No, the questions were well written and well designed, and they were also designed to be fluid. So you ended up, yeah, I did these things, like I had them write it down. A couple didn't write down very much, and one in particular, who will go nameless, hardly wrote down.
He was not verified.
He was not verified. I verified him once out of 3 times, okay? And that was probably a gift. But most of these people, you're laughing. I mean, seriously, people need to listen. And part of leadership is listening. If you don't listen to instructions or listen to the public, I wanted them to get used to the idea that they have to be responsive and direct. You don't have to be long-winded, just be responsive and direct, and that's it. That's PR, and that's also politics.
And you are the public.
I am the public. I was representing the public. So
Tribune of the plebes.
Tribune of the plebes, that is correct. But I also had them, because the echo chamber effect a lot of times involves proximity, I actually had them move around the room. Yes. And I actually was looking on the papers that they wrote to see they wrote something. It was all about testing their listening skills.
Sixth grade, yeah.
Man, you know what? It's important. I don't care what anybody says. I had 3 people come up to me after the debate and said, we want to patent your concept. And I go, I know this is the analog version. The electronic version is going to be great. And it's going to happen. So people, there's going to be I'm going to call it a anti-echo chamber, no stepping up kind of system where in real time, candidates, I want to be able to make them accountable and make them study, because that's not happening now.
If you patent it, you better do it now before.
Well, somebody steals it. Yes, I'll be patenting that. But anyway, Billy's already like, I've got it. I've got to make money off Bob somehow. Anyway. No, but I think in the end, though, once they got through the question, they did some of them gave excellent answers on these issues, okay? Right? But if you give an excellent answer and you've just winged it, that also shows something about how you will be in office, Reagan, okay?
No, I actually,
when you analyze it with a little distance.
It was very awkward, and I was very embarrassed, but...
I wasn't.
Well, I know you weren't, but, when it was all said and done and we heard all the answers, I do think that they gave better answers after this process than they would have at a normal forum. So I was like, maybe there was a little method to your madness, even if it was a bit unorthodox.
Well, unorthodoxy, it was a little clunky because it's the first time I really tried to break it out. But honestly, I've never seen it done before, and I thought, let's go for this. Let's integrate this kind of, it wasn't a social experiment because it's real life, okay? They knew it was real life, and some chose to follow.
I don't know if some of them did at first.
Well, honestly, though.
So what they were asking, is this real life?
Yeah, maybe. But one thing also that happens when you do a debate the way I did, with different style questions every time, right? A different ask. If it's me asking, and that's after this question, I handed it over to you because I was like, I got to give them a break, some release. And I knew that was going to happen. And Boucher made jokes at my expense, and I knew that was going to happen. I knew Boucher would be comedy relief.
It wouldn't be Boucher.
Right, if it wasn't comic relief. But they answered the questions. Let's talk about how they answered the questions. I thought Marsha Porter, in her answers, was the most direct, specific, and that's what I want. I wanted somebody this was a knowledge and leadership display. Mm-hmm. And if you had the ideas, if you were an ideas-oriented candidate, right, or you had the experience level to understand why these are important things, you did well.
Well, and it was on the variance question, I believe, that we actually saw some fireworks, because on that question, Howard Wood, again, who's challenging incumbent Raymond McDonald, Howard actually went on the offensive and accused McDonald of voting for a variance for a developer, I think that didn't give enough room for the fire trucks or something of that nature. And there were actually several instances throughout the night where Howard actually went on the attack against McDonald.
Tax raising, he said.
Yeah,
Tax
McDonald,
raising.
but McDonald didn't respond to any of those. It was very, very interesting.
It was like Michael Dukakis' second debate. It was
No
like
response.
that debate in the late 80s. Bush would make a tax and Dukakis wouldn't say anything. He would just like kind of poo-poo it. And you have to respond when someone is going directly at you. But you do. There's no avoiding that because the audience like goes, why didn't he say anything? So it actually, when you make a charge like that in a local election, the charge usually stands, I find. It
It's easy
sticks.
because, especially in a forum, because it's, if somebody makes an attack against you, if you respond,
Yeah.
you respond in the same outlet or the same forum, right? So if somebody attacks you in a forum, it doesn't hurt you to respond back in that forum, but you don't go on like social media then and amplify the attack.
No,
against
you don't do that.
So we all know candidates who have done that, and it's a rookie mistake.
Yeah. But let's talk about the one that was philosophical kind of, which is, the combination of services. I thought they all dropped the ball on this one because they were claiming that there's so much cooperation between City of Conroe and other entities, and, especially the incumbents did. There's hardly any going on. And, you ask Jody Tchaikovsky now or Mark Keogh if they talk to each other very much, the answer is going to be not really. So how are they getting their teams together to work on projects? There's not a lot of communication there.
All the answers to that question were very vague. It was like, oh, communication is good. We like communication, but in cooperation. But they didn't really give many specifics on exactly.
And
how
that
was
was
being done.
and that's what I would say. That question would be a more normal question, and then you compare it to the first two, right? And you go, okay, what's the better questions you asked the first two? That was the last question was a control question and very open-ended by design. Why should you not do that? Well, if they really actually knew a lot, right? If they knew a lot about how the city and the county really worked, they would have said, we don't have enough of that, and they would have hit a home run. That was an opportunity for any candidate to hit a home run, a grand slam
None
out
of
of the
them
park.
really said that.
None of them took it. No, none of them thought about it enough because they were probably wore out after the first two.
They're probably shell shocked.
They were shell shocked a little bit. But you know what? That's what is going to happen to you when you are at a public forum or a city council meeting. Somebody's going to ask you something you know nothing about. You got to use your instincts, right? And you also have to use your political abilities to go, you know what I think he's trying to get at? We don't, by the design of the question, if you are intelligent enough to see, this has nothing to do with intelligence really. It has to do with more of a social intelligence, okay? By the design of the question, right? You should have went, well, I don't think we have enough, right, of partner sharing. And then everybody else will look different than you. Right?
Yeah.
That would have been the smart move. And I honestly believe we don't have enough, Reagan. So moving on, the next question was, I think yours. What was that one?
Well, before we move on to that,
Yeah.
I guess you had 3 people you said should patent that, but not everybody was happy about it.
Oh, you're talking about the one person.
So you did get a little blowback, so tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. Campaign strategist who will remain nameless, but is a female. She goes, you disrespected every candidate up there. And I go, no, I did not. You're wrong. And I start to walk away.
That's exactly how it happened.
No, that is exactly how it happened. And then she's like, wait, you can't tell me I'm wrong. I'm like, I just did and you are. You're wrong. And I kept walking. Then she starts yelling at me. She's like, you're disrespecting me right now. And I'm like, no, I'm not. You didn't understand what was going on there. Or if you did, you weren't paying attention. And then she's like, you can't do that to grown adults. Grown adults, you treated them like children. I go, I've been to leadership academies. I have been, and everybody in business, maybe she's lived a pampered life. I don't know. But everybody in business on a high level or the oil business or technology, we've all been through these exercises where you go, okay, you're going to do this, and it's like grown-up Simon Says.
Like a team building exercise?
Like team building and all that kind of stuff. And what it shows is leadership ability, who's the take charge individual, and then you analyze the group. That's a fact. That's high-level corporate America
So this was
stuff.
a social experiment.
Not really, no, because social experiments usually involve like humiliation. I treated everybody the same. I treated everybody the same.
You humiliated them all the same.
Yeah. But I don't think political candidates are gods, people. They got to be trained to be responsive to the public. I'm different, the average political consultant. Average political consultant just babies them, and they know nothing, and then they got to call me when they want to learn something, and I hate it. I'm like, why can't you call me to help you write a bill? Something fun. No. Can you show him what to say and think? I mean, come on, people. You got a lot of third base consultants out there and PR people who don't know anything about politics, and it offends me after all my education and trying to help people have better government, better ideas, and actually know what they're talking about. That's my annoyance. You're running for office and you don't even know the things that I was laying out there. You shouldn't be running, basically. So it wasn't a social experiment. It was a leadership test about this job in particular. I did not give them a softball session. They got into the crucible with me, and if you're in the crucible with me, you better be AP level or above. I'm not doing this softball crap that most of these people do around here. So to say I disrespect them, no. If you're running for office, you should be here. My question should be there. Just like with Jonathan Houlihan on the show. You know what Houlihan did? I don't know. I'm going to research that more, Bob. If somebody would have said that, I would have said verified. I would have said verified. You know why? Because you can always ask if you don't know. And you can ask anyone and they will help you. But they didn't want to do that. They were too hung up on things they may or may not know. And that showed weakness to me, okay? Because if I don't know something legal, I call a lawyer, right? But this candidate's strategist basically was like I believe her attitude, Reagan, maybe you can disagree with me, is this, and I think a lot of political strategists believe this: just protect the candidate at all costs. So she had to say something to me, right? Because she felt probably, I don't think the candidate did, but she felt the candidate didn't do that well, right? So that everybody said the only reason she's yelling at you, Bob, isn't because of that section there where you were making them do stuff, listening exercise. What she's mad about is her candidate didn't fare well in that section to a person. That is fair, that is objective, and that shows no disrespect. I believe I am an elevator of ideas. If you don't want to buy that, this was the most interesting forum. I got so many positive things later. They're like, I didn't know what the heck you were doing first, to be honest with you, Bob. I didn't have a clue. That was him. But once it was over and in the rear view mirror of the debate, and like a day or two later, I'm still getting responses on this, and a lot of them are from other consultants. Like, what the heck did you do, Bob? I applied behavioralism, science, and education into a leadership test. And I think we've all, Billy Graff over there, myself, and Reagan, we've all been to these leadership institutes.
Yeah, but I've been to leadership, tests and things like that, but I haven't done anything like that before.
Well, I'm not going to allow at my forum echo chambers. So I prevented the echo chamber almost completely from this debate. I eliminated that step-up process in the questions between candidates. And I think that's why it has value. Mm-hmm. In the overall aggregate, a debate structured like the way I structured it has value because candidates can't cheat off the other candidates and step up and just build answers off the candidates. And secondly, not knowing what's going to hit you is called life. It is. Leadership is not, let's prepare and let's just follow the randomness and you'll be fun. We'll just do it like real didactic and everything. We'll know everything before we go and then you'll be prepared. Wrong. In life, things happen unexpectedly. How do you respond? This forum showed that, how they would respond. So it was a leadership test and they got to see every different facet of these people. I think it was very effective. Your thoughts?
Sounds kind of like a social experiment.
In a way, but not a social experiment, like I said, has an element of complete and utter. I was not rude. I was viciously intellectual. There you go.
So then we get back to the normal forum.
Right.
And so I asked the next few questions because at that point I'm like, well, there's no way I'm giving him the mic back. But I asked him a question about the effective tax rate.
Yep.
And I mean, they all kind of gave oh, we shouldn't raise taxes unless it's absolutely
But they hemmed and hawed. They hemmed and
Yeah.
hawed. And I don't think most of them also knew what the effective tax rate actually means.
No, I think a lot of them didn't actually.
And that was pathetic.
And so then we had another question about like beautification projects, things that are going on downtown, and then the wall. Then they asked about the wall.
Then I went into the April Sound wall discussion. And I think a couple city council people the rumors got back to me. They're like, I know Bob Coates going to ask about that wall. And I'm like, I did. But I think the problem in April Sound and wealthier neighborhoods getting walls are this. I think that cities make a giant mistake when they overdevelop and they spread out and they fan out like kind of how Conroe does. What happens to the older, more established neighborhoods typically, Reagan? They atrophy, right? And because they think April Sound's wealthy, that doesn't mean that April Sound will always be wealthy. Now, you said access to the water. Even there's neighborhoods on the water on this lake that are not looking that great, okay? And they provide a lot of taxes to the city. So what should you do with that neighborhood that's providing, they don't do end user agreements in City of Conroe and the county here, which means if you are the builder, you got to build the roads in, you got to improve the infrastructure in to wherever. You're going to cause more traffic by having 5,000 houses somewhere, right? So you better improve the infrastructure before those people get there. Makes sense, Reagan? We don't do that here. We never do that here, okay? We don't have these end user type things. And because of that, what happens to the ordinary person living in April Sound, Cape Conroe, Wedgwood, you name it along 105? They get, like the traffic is, I swear, month to month it's getting worse, like every day. I'm at 2 o'clock yesterday, I'm driving down 105, and it was like a traffic jam at 2 o'clock. I'm like, this isn't right. So people live close to those more congested highways, which they never thought they were going to. I suggested, I suggested another way, which is with criteria the city can establish, right? Could you look, and not just for April Sound, right, Reagan? Because I think that would be snobbery a bit. But certain neighborhoods of size that provide a lot of tax donor areas, right, along 105 where the development's coming, the city should be looking to improve those properties to do what? Make them remain, and I'm not saying every year, I'm saying periodically, they should be improving those neighborhoods somehow with their infrastructure. I believe that, with a gate or not, okay?
If I was running for Conroe City Council, which I'm not, my slogan would be build the wall and make Walden pay for it. I would win in a landslide.
Really, make Walden pay for it, that's nice. But really, so they answered the question and they got a little bit of education about annexation, water, all sorts of things in this debate.
Yeah. So was there anything else really?
Describe this without me around. What were people's reactions when I wasn't around to you going, how'd you think that debate went? The people in the room.
Words I heard were unique, interesting, unusual, special, haven't done this before. Not your usual candidate forum.
But was it informative?
Informative, yeah. I mean, I really do think, and again, I do think that the answers we got were meatier than usual. And part of this may be your methodology, but part of it may be because it's a city election, and so it's more focused on actual like local policy
Specific.
issues, as opposed to the primaries we just went through. Which primaries, you're talking congressional races and that sort of thing, it's much more like red meat for the savages in primaries, as opposed to like a city election where you actually have to talk about the issues that impact people's everyday lives.
I agree. But the one thing that we need in candidate forums are no echo chamber effects, no confirmation bias, like no, Billy Graff was in a debate once where I've never seen this. his opponent literally went, I agree with everything Dr. Graff just said, and most of what he said tonight, but he still ain't gonna win. And that was like, wow. So it wasn't even based on ideas in his mind at all. There's too much association going on in politics. Politics needs to be more about this, tied to this, not just, I'm all heart. Well, no, we need a brain too, okay? So I think we get better government if we have informed voters, and actually the candidates who are better prepared, knowing that if everybody adopted this kind of buzzsaw matrix-like approach, we would have a much better candidate pool by a mile everywhere in the United States. Because right now, what's it based off of? PR and advertising. Spend your ad budgets and money. This would be a leveler, and this is why I decided to have this form this way. And I'm willing to do it in my own backyard at my own potential cost.
You might say, Bob, that you're willing to rock the boat.
If you didn't like the form, too bad. Read a book. Learn about the city, please. Okay. Anyway, that's a special, fascinating edition of Rock the Boat this week, tearing Bob up. But anyway, I accept criticism. I'm good with criticism.
Let us know what you thought about the forum in the comments. And again, if you haven't, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you, folks.
God bless.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and ownership of MCPLive.tv.